Hello and welcome back to the Positive Progress podcast. Always have to make sure I say that correctly. Like you've said, I think before, Nigel, it's too many P's and I can't quite get my tongue around it. Exactly. I need to do my Peter Piper picked a piece of pickled pepper.
So then.
And I've noticed that today, this recording is our 10th. So we're hitting our double figures on episode numbers today. So it's great to have you with us. And today we are going to be looking at joy and the fact that joy is something we can tune into at any time. It's something we have within us versus happiness, which is more of a response to something that has happened externally. And Nigel, have you experienced this yourself? Do you have a sense of that difference?
Just before we came on, funnily enough, I used the word reservoir, and that's the way that I actually see it, because I think when you were describing briefly what it was that you wanted to put forward, I saw it as the thing which is like an immediate thing, right? Which is what you were saying about the sadness and the happiness, which is like an immediate effect of something that's happening, sort of thing. But this I see as a sort of like a pool or something that you have within inside you that you can call on when you want to. Does that make sense? And that's from what you were just saying. I mean, that's what I got.
Absolutely. And I think it's not something that we can lose, though we can maybe lose a sense that it's still there. This has come really, I've decided to talk about this today because of a meeting I was on earlier where the guest speaker was the joyful junkie, and she was talking about the difference between joy and happiness. And then the conversation went on into, well, you become the 5 people you spend most time with. And if those people aren't joyful people, do we lose our joy? And the joyful junkie was saying, no, it's something that's yours. You have it always, but you might lose your sense that it's there. So you might lose that sense of having that reservoir within you, which can make it maybe more challenging to connect with it, but it's still there, which I found really reassuring, because I know there have been times in my life when I thought, joy, nah, I don't get any of that.
Well, in that case, are you actually saying that, if you're in the company of those 5 people, right, and just happen, like all 5 all together, there's 6 of you, right? And then you've got 4 of those people who are fairly miserable. They're like Debbie Downers, yeah? And you've got maybe just the one person who's sort of like the you bullied one, the happy one, the woohoo type one, right? If that's the case, are you saying that they have a short-term impact on you, but obviously that is separate to? I just want to get this straight in my own mind now, right? Because we haven't discussed this before. Are you then saying that they have a short-term negative impact on you, or can have, but on the other hand, you still retain this background J or Y? Did you see what I mean?
I think if you're not consciously maintaining your joy, then yes, you can pick up on their downness, all those Debbie Downers. You kind of pick up on that vibe, and it can be like a cloud, I guess, going over your own joy, so that you're not as conscious that it's still within you, but it is still there. And hopefully, consciously, once you, or even while you're still in the company of those Debbie Downers, you can reconnect. But I think that takes practice, and it takes learning the tools that support you individually to reconnect with that sense of joy, or just knowing that, hey, I've lost my joy. Where are my joyful crew? I'm going to go and spend my time with my joy junkies rather than my Debbie Downers.
You've just done the 4 Debbie Downers, right? Is that what we're saying here?
Well, that was your term, so I just running with it.
Yeah, go on. Go on.
So if I'm conscious that I have spent time in company that has left me feeling less joyful, I can then make a determined decision to find the people who lift me back up again. or to do whatever it is, because I'm a strong believer that it doesn't have to be people. If we can't immediately connect with people, then it can be, what are the videos I love to watch on YouTube? What's the music I love to listen to and dance to that brings my vibration back up again? Or there's the practice of gratitude done appropriately. So I'm not saying just be polypositive for the sake of trying to, I'm going to try to be positive. The stuff that really does lift your vibration and leave you feeling upbeat and uplifted. And that's the stuff that we can reconnect with that reservoir.
What happens if you sort of got the impression or the reality that you've actually lost that sense of joy?
You mean for those people who are left thinking, like I did once upon a time, joy, there just isn't any in me?
Yeah.
I think that's where it can be really helpful to have a gratitude practice. I know that my gratitude practice at the beginning of my journey was something that really helped me to connect back in to my joy. It's also, I think, spending time with people who can be compassionately joyful and hold that space for you. So sometimes it can be overwhelming to go in with the polypositives who are just too much, almost. They might be authentically, legitimately happy, but if you feel that you don't have happiness inside of you, that can feel like a really difficult space to be in, because maybe we're judging ourselves or we're feeling that we are lacking. We're the one without the joy and we can't get to their level of joyness. So
that's what I'm referring to, because what I'm saying is the fact that these positive progress podcasts are all about this overarching thing about well-being, right? And how we can give some advice or help or information that could stop people from, or not stop anything, but to actually help people to manage the amount of stress and tension they carry around, and to be able to use that in a way which can be in some way useful in their lives, right? Because we all have stress and tension. But the reason I mentioned that, or asked the question, was because, I mean, you've more or less just answered it, actually, because the fact is that sometimes people being joyful can put pressure on you, and we then end up in a position whereby you're not particularly miserable. You're not particularly we call him a Danny Downer now, right? Because we're male, right? You're not one of them, but you are just yourself, and your level of joyfulness is probably lower than theirs. So then vicariously, you can have a situation where those people can, not intentionally, but unintentionally, make you feel as though you're the one that's the downer. Do you know what I mean? So
certainly
I think you have to be careful in relation to. I'll give you an example, right? At the moment, there's changes going on. We haven't got long enough to actually discuss what the changes are specifically, but there's changes going on with me in relation to what I do. And in the rest of my life at the moment, I am joyful. I look at, especially because of the nice weather and because I feel good about that and all that sort of thing, and nature and all that sort of thing. But there's stuff going on in relation to what I do in this arena, which is changing, and it's changing out of a sense of me not being joyful about what I do. But that's not. But like you say, that's a fairly transient thing. It's not a permanent thing. What I'm saying is it feasible that when people get to a point where that joy reservoir is going lower, if you like, if you want to use that analogy again, that's a sign for them to. I mean, we're not going to we use this term all the time, but the power of stop, right? We talk about making room and recognizing a moment in your life. And for me, it's so important to do that. But like you say, you have to connect to the fact that it's not just a transient thing. The whole joy thing is leaving or is going down lower. Do you see what I mean? And that creates that moment when you have to jump in and say, now's the time for change. Now's the time for at least to review what's going on.
I don't know if I'd see it as a reservoir going up and down, because I think we just have joy. It's just there within us. But I think it's maybe that thing of the cloud coming over and we can see a certain amount of joy and then maybe we see less. And it's whatever's getting in the way of us being conscious of the fullness and the depth of our joy and being able to tune into and connect with that and feel and express that. Because if we're not seeing as much, I don't think it's gone away. I think it's still there, but we're just not seeing it in the same way. Then absolutely, I think that's the trigger to the nudge, the prompt to invite us and encourage us to go within and see, well, where am I not feeling as much joy? What is my body actually trying to tell me? This nudge is saying, your joy's not that way. You're moving away from your joy if you go or continue going down that route, or it's just not the one that's for you now. Maybe it was in the past, but it's not fulfilling you in the way that it once was. So that's a little nudge to, let's try another way. Let's look around and see, well, what is calling you? Where is that little glimmer, that spark that you're really excited about and that helps you to reconnect with the depth of your joy and to bring that back into the work that you do? Because as the Joy Junkie was saying, that's magnetic. When you feel your joy and when you're bringing your joy to other people, it's magnetic. Because who doesn't want? It's like you see people who are confident and they're upbeat and they're happy. They're like moths. They're like a flame for moths, where we're drawn. We all think, ooh, I'd like a little bit of that. Where do you get more of that?
Yeah. Well, all right. Let me throw this one in then. I feel like I'm really the devil's advocate today, right, on this one. But I mean, this is how we're going to.
There's a change.
Well, I'm not normally this bad. Today, I'm thinking to myself now, right, that you're talking about something which is available, or at least a thought process which is available to you when we are normal. That word again, right? We are whatever your normal is, your majority of the time. But from my own personal experience, obviously, I understand that when you're going through a period, you're already going through or going into a period of depressive illness, it's almost impossible to grab that thought, to grab that idea, because you're so disconnected, because you're so, what's the word? Dissociated from the normality around you, right? How you normally function. So you've got this gap, this thing which has opened up, which isn't normally there. You just normally are you. This not relevant normally. Is this something that can only be experienced, this idea of joy, by somebody who is in this usual state, shall we call it?
Unfortunately, I'm not sure how normal it is for most of us, because I think a lot of us are feeling maybe out of balance, out of harmony inside of us, because by and large, we often live in a toxic environment, a toxic culture. And I think that does take us away from that sense of our reservoir. I think at any point in time, we can get what some people have referred to as glimmers. So that little spark, and it may be tiny. And I think also it's relative. So I might be in a very dark place, and so I see any kind of light. You know, it's really noticeable is what I mean, for any kind of light. Like you can't see the stars because they're far away and their light isn't very bright until it's dark. And it needs to be dark for us to see some of those lights. And I think that's where a gratitude practice, when it's done appropriately and properly, and it's true gratitude, rather than just, oh, I'm thankful for, and we just toss out ideas and we repeat the same ones all the time. A proper gratitude practice for me needs to be different things each time, because otherwise we're just, oh, I'm thankful for 4 walls and a roof over my head, and I'm grateful that the sun's shining today. And that's great. It's great to be thankful for all of those things, but it's not going very deep if that's the same things that you're churning out every day. So I think we have the potential to see those glimmers even in the darkest of times. but it's also a choice. And that sounds awful, that then are you telling me that I'm not choosing? But it's to know how, and to know that we can, and to be able to give ourselves permission. Because I think certainly when I was in my dark place, I nearly couldn't give myself permission to see glimmers, because then I was just going to, if I did, I would be afraid they were taken away. They'd be taken away straight away. So I didn't trust that they would last. I almost didn't want to see them, because then when they were, my perception, my expectation was they would just be snatched away. And then I would feel nearly worse, because I had thought, oh, there's a possibility, a potential, and then, oh, it's gone. I'm back in the darkest. But to know that if I can see it once, I can see it again, and I can see it again, and I can build on that, and it can grow. And something else you were saying earlier about we each have different levels in our reservoir, I'm not sure about that either. I wonder, do we all have equal capacity for joy, but maybe we're just not aware of it?
So the reality is it's there, but do we have the capacity to, I was going to say see it, but it's not just see it, to experience it.
To tune into it, to know it, to trust that it's there and that we can connect with it. And that, you were saying that it's kind of a thought. I think it's even more than that. I think it's a vibration, an emotion. I think it kind of, in a sense, is who we are when we are being our truest, most authentic self.
It's a strange one for me, because most of the stuff that we've discussed before, I've had a pretty much a handle on it. And the reason I'm being the devil's advocate today is because I'm genuinely interested, but it's slightly confused in relation to how this works or what it is. Summarize for the people watching, and also for me, can you summarize the practical things that people could say or do you think? And obviously, this is just your opinions in relation to how they can get into contact, or how they can get into like a connection with this idea, this reservoir of joy.
I think that's the wonderful thing about these conversations. They are an exploration, and they are a start of the conversation. So like you say, anything I say in answer to that question is my opinion, and everybody else's opinion is equally valid. As we say on every episode, please do, if you're watching this and you're thinking thoughts around what joy is for you, or you've got questions, pop them below, because we would love to engage more on this. For me, I also think it's a very personal thing. 2 examples. I love nature and I love animals. So you were talking earlier about, so nice to see the sun at the moment. It's really uplifting. It raises our spirits. So for me, it's getting outdoors, spending time in nature. I'm so blessed with where I live, because I'm surrounded by nature, and I can just go out my front door and go for a walk with the dog. Spending time with animals, really, I find that very uplifting as well. You think of dogs and they just run along with their tail in the air and nose to the ground. They're just exploring and enjoying the moment, being present. So I think when we're able to be present, but that is determined by how safe we feel. Do we feel physically safe, emotionally safe, psychologically safe? And when we do, and we can be present, then I think we can start to get a sense of, well, what is it inside of me? Where are those glimmers? What am I grateful for? And we can kind of start with that. So I, on my journey, started with a gratitude journal and just put down the things every day. And it's often the simplest, most everyday things that we suddenly start to see differently. The fact that I've got a drink, and it might be for some people, they love that smell of coffee first thing in the morning and that first cup, and being able to be mindful and taking the time just to be still and to really experience that coffee, the smell of it, the warmth of it as you drink it and it goes down into your tongue. into your stomach, and the taste, because coffee has a very distinctive taste.
Yeah.
All of those things, the sun on your skin, the rain on your skin. So I wrote a piece which is now on my YouTube channel a while ago, which was all about the things that we can be grateful for. And I was focusing mostly on nature. So the sun, the moon, the stars in the night sky, the feel of the sun on your skin, but also the feel of rain. If it's been a long, hot day and you just get one of those lovely, refreshing summer showers. So it can be all sorts of things, and it can be opposite things. So the rain or the sun, the moon or the daytime. And my husband then, sorry, just to finish that off, my husband, he's an engineer, and for him, his joy comes from the sound of an engine that's purring.
You said that before. That's his bag. That's his thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what gives him joy.
So we're all different. Mine is nature, his is engines. What's yours?
Well, it's not this. This is more non-specific, because you know that we've already spoken about the weather, right? The weather has a big effect on me. That sunshine, the long days, the sort of like the lighter nights and all that. I'm a different fella altogether, rather than a winter. But that's quite specific. But what I want, from what you were just saying, right? The thing that I pulled out is the fact that all these things are already there. They haven't been put there for your joy. They haven't been put there for your pleasure or displeasure. They already exist. The stars are already there. Trees are there. Birds are there. The moon is there. The sky is there, right? And I think when I think of those things, what I'm doing personally, and this is what does it for me, if you like, is the fact that I'm tuning into the reality of those things. I'm connecting to the fact that whether I'm looking at them at that moment, they're still there. Whether I'm actually here in another 30 years' time, they're still there. Do you know what I mean? They've got a permanence about them, which I find quite exciting and quite fascinating. And then it also gives me a perspective in relation to, and this again is a conversation we've had before, but something that's really important to me, this inside and out thing, because of the fact that in my world, and it's not an arrogance thing, it's a fact that in my world, everything that I see, everything that I do, everything that I say is the most important thing in the world. But in the scheme of things, and this is tied into that opposite thing you were just talking about, right? But in the scheme of things, I'm one of 8 billion people on this planet. So my life is completely and utterly insignificant. But it's that joy of the opposites. That's that joy. It's the yin and the yang thing, not literally, but the yin and the yang thing in relation to how you can grab hold of the things that are important to you. But they don't have to be important to anybody else. They really, really don't. It's nice if they are. Because going back to your 5 friends in the first place, it's nice if you can have that conversation. It's a really nice thing if they can tune into the way that you feel, and you can smile together and laugh together, even cry together on occasion, so that you're in tune with those people. But you can still do this on your own in your own little world. So it's a more general point rather than pinpointing a thing. I'm talking about everything. I'm talking about the fact that this stuff is there to be enjoyed. It's interesting enough, part of the word enjoyed is joy.
Well, enjoy, we spell it with an E, but it actually comes from enjoy, to bring joy into. And that is our choice. We get to choose, where do I want to bring joy in, and how do I want to bring it in? What does that for me?
I think you have to be careful that we explain that obviously this isn't something that a lot of people have in their life a lot of the time. A lot of people have much more difficult lives than Robin and Nigel. And I think we have to be appreciative of the fact that we can, all we can do is give people that information and give that people a little bit of encouragement, a little, polite push, and say, well, see if you can find, whatever you've got in there, see if you can home in on that, see if you can, because there's, again, going back to another thing we've talked about before, is some things are out of our control. But there are certain things within our life, the way that we look at things, the way we think about things, which are very much in our control. And I think that's where this, I'd like call it like a tapping into joy. Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's about those two things to me, making that stop point and then tapping in to whatever you can have. And in some respects, it's quite like a self, I can't say it now, self-fulfilling prophecy that if you can grab a little bit of joy, it puts you on this road here rather than that road there. And it's not easy for a lot of people to do, in all fairness. It's really, really difficult. And I appreciate, again, this is about appreciation and joy. I appreciate that I'm a very lucky man and my life is a good life. So I think we have to be aware of the fact that for some people this is a difficult thing to do. But let's push them, let's help them, let's support them to find whatever they can find.
And that's what I hope these conversations are, an inspiration. I hope they are in themselves a glimmer, because I know that when I was in my dark place, I would never have thought I could have joy in my life. My husband even said to me at one point, "You've had a sense of humor bypass," which hit. That
Yeah.
was the hiccup my behind, but it did push me into doing some stuff and trying to find what wasn't working and how could I maybe change that and shift that. And thankfully I found it. And I strongly believe, therefore, that it is possible for anybody. If I can do it, anybody can do it. Because I was in such a place of, well, it's not my fault. It's this thing, that thing. If only that was different, this person was different. There's nothing I can change. I've done everything that I need to do. It's all that out there, which I now realize, and I would never have realized at the time and would probably have strongly denied at the time, was me giving my power away.
Mm.
And it was me always looking out there when the joy is in here. Nothing out there can make me feel joyful or give me joy unless I'm receptive to it and I choose it. There could be lots of wonderful things out there. The sun did shine even when I was in my darkest of times.
Yeah, going back to what I'm saying about the stuff already being there.
Yeah. Did I appreciate it in the way I do now? No. And it's like you have talked about before, when you were feeling like you were a step behind yourself.
Mm.
And then when you had that reintegration moment, everything was brighter and the colors and the sounds, everything was sharper and you appreciated it in a whole new way. And I think that really sums it up for me. That describes it so well and so clearly. I was out of step with myself. So nothing felt right. Nothing felt like it joined up or made sense or gave me any joy whatsoever. But now that I've kind of integrated myself a lot more, and I'm still a work in progress. So although I can bring joy in when I kind of choose it consciously, I don't always feel it 100% of the time. But when I don't, it's like you were saying about, you realized that the work you were doing is no longer giving you the joy that you want. So you decide, what changes can I make? How can I reconnect with my joy? So when I'm not feeling joy and I get conscious of that, I'm grateful for that nudge that is, this is a time to look back inside of myself, to reconnect with that joy and to bring it, therefore, into the things that I do and share it with others, hopefully, and be that inspiration, be that glimmer that hopefully supports other people. Because I know that was a big thing for me. I looked to the people that I thought, I'd like to be more like you. And I can see joy in you. I want to know how you're doing it so that I can do it. And it's not to say that I take the same steps as them, but I look at, how did you do that for you? How might I adopt and adapt that for me? What does the joy that you find, what does that for me? How can I bring that into my life?
You've just sort of answered the question I was going to say to summarize exactly what we've been talking about for the last half hour. I think you've actually answered the question, but I'll ask it anyway. What would be, it doesn't have to be a single action, but what would be one or two actions, actual doing things that you could put forward from your own personal experience of that sort of depressive illness, and also in relation to the way that you've understood these things and learned these things now. Give me just finish this off. Give me 2 things maybe that you think that people could do, actual things that they could get done to try and tune into this idea, this joy, this reservoir of joy.
Something that I often recommend to people is to tune into their body and to listen to what the body is saying. And I call it the body vocabulary. And we can start to then get a sense of what pulls me down, what lifts me up, and how do I recognize the difference? What does it feel like for me when I feel lifted up, even if that's, from the pits of despair to another thing that's still not feeling great. For example, anger is above despair. So I might just see a tiny little glimmer, and it might only last for a second. But the more conscious I can get of that, the more I can start to think, right, that came about because I did this. For me, walking in nature, listening to birdsong, seeing a sunrise or a sunset. Explore. I encourage people to explore what is it that gives you even that tiniest little glimmer, and to spend as much time as you can in that, even if it's just in your head.
What floats your boat?
Yeah. What about you? What would you, as a practice, recommend?
I would actually sort of I feel funny when I say about these things, because I'm talking about, and again we've made reference to it a little bit earlier on. This is what I do, right? This is not what other people must do. This is just the way that I find that I have a positive influence on my own mind by doing this. And it's so simple. And it's almost like a mini meditation, but it's not meditation. It's just a relaxation, and it's to do with actually trying to take a time out. And I've got we got a leather chair in the kitchen there, and we call it Big Brown. It's a big brown leather chair, right? And I quite often say to my wife, what the fact is, right, I'm going to have a little moment in Big Brown now. And that involves literally just sitting there and releasing my mind, so that whatever comes to my mind at that moment comes to my mind. I don't have a comment in mind. I don't have an agenda in mind. All I've got is the fact that I'm really, really comfortable in that chair, and whatever flows in, flows in. And the reason that works for me, and the reason that makes me happy, is because when you've got the relaxation element where you physically feel really sort of, and that's a nice thing in itself. That's a really nice thing. And the other element then is to do with, you've made the time. Again, going back to this constant theme I'm almost obsessed with, this stop thing. And also the fact is you've allowed your brain to take you where it wants to go, rather than you going through the process. Sometimes the tension and the stress of I got to think about this, I got to think about that, I got to do this, I got to do that. I call it a reset. And it's like a daily reset that I like to do, because of the fact it's got all those elements, all those positive elements involved in it. Now, whether that is something which would be to do with this joy reservoir we started off talking about, but we've moved on from there slightly. That is how and I'm not coping with anything. I'm not fighting against anything at that particular point. I'm letting my brain tell me. And that's a really nice thing, because I think of the most strange things. And I say them to my wife, and she says, "What the hell are you on about?" Oh, sorry, okay. And, like names come into my head. I give you an example, right? Very quickly. I said to the other day, I said, "What do you know about Elizabeth Throckmorton?" And she said, "What are you talking?" This is after I'd been sitting there, and this is where my brain had gone, right? And I said, I think I know. It's something to do with the Tudors, and she's something to do with Queen Elizabeth, but I'd have to find out. And the reason I liked that was because, one, it tuned my brain into something that it wanted to think about. Where the hell did Elizabeth Throckmorton come from? I got no idea. But I was actually quite chuffed. I'm thinking, And then it inspired me to go and find out who this lady was. I could tell you, but people should do their own research. Very interesting. That sort of thing. And that's, to me, is how I give myself what I call the freedom of thought, which to me is really, really important to let it go. Even for that period of time, 10, 15 minutes. And that's how I do it. And that gives me joy. That makes me happy.
I love that. I love so many elements of that. You've got the stop or the pause in there, and you've got the just permission for your mind, your body to bring up whatever it chooses to. And then the curiosity. Where did that come from? What's that all about? Where might that lead me?
Yeah, I'm not sure my wife is so enamored of the idea when I keep coming up with these strange things. But it's great. It's fantastic because it's not in any way led by me. It's just my head going, ooh. Nice.
But
It's
it
nice.
is led by you. It's led by your inner self and by your inner wisdom, and you never know where that might lead you. And now that we have ChatGPT, you can just put in, who was this person? Or what can you tell me about this thing? And it can bring up all sorts, which then can take you down lots of new, because anything, I love learning, I love feeling inspired and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, absolutely. I love this. I love the random element of it.
It's something which I cling to quite a lot, really, because I never used to be random. As you know, I used to be a police officer, and my life, which went from my professional life into my personal life, it sort of leaked into my personal life. I was very organized. I was very unrandom. I don't know if there's such a word as unrandom, but you know what I mean? I was always, everything had to have a logical reason behind it. And I make a deliberate attempt these days to not be that deliberate, if you know what I mean.
A deliberate attempt not to be deliberate.
Yeah.
I'll be spontaneous.
I'm deliberately undeliberate. How about that then?
Yeah, and I'll be spontaneous so long as we can book it in and plan it ahead.
Yeah, that's right.
It's those paradoxes and those permissions to put that aside. And I'm listening to a great book at the moment, which is talking about our inner judge. And the impression I'm getting is somebody standing there with a clipboard and a set of rules, and you must do things that organized. And where is the freedom that you mentioned, the freedom of mind and freedom for your body to bring up whatever it chooses to, and just to follow that. So that's spontaneity. And I think that's like play. And I've been listening to a woman on LinkedIn, Jenny Eleonora Grossi, and she's all about play. I highly recommend anybody who's interested in that to look her up. And we had a conversation about how play is so serious. She has an article, I think it's called Deadly Serious About Play, which I'm sharing in my next newsletter. And we had a conversation about how I often say it's real. We should take play seriously, and we should play with our work. I love these paradoxes and these contradictions. It gives us that freedom, and it brings up our joy, gives us permission to feel and express that joy.
Can we say then that the overarching thing for this conversation today that's come out to me, I mean, there's lots and lots of points in here, really nice stuff. But for me, I'm just thinking, I said earlier on off the top of my head, go with the flow.
Yes.
I think that's a lot of it's to do with actually allowing yourself. And in my mind now, it's on this little boat, and the little boat is just it hasn't got an engine, it's floating wherever it wants to go in the world and what have you. It's a matter of saying, well, this is the reality of what's happening now. I'm going to appreciate this. I'm going to just go with the flow.
And that just holding of that space. And sometimes I use a mantra that right here, right now, I am safe. And then that's okay. I can go with the flow. I can be joyful, be spontaneous.
That's a good point to wrap it up, I think. I like that. Yeah. As long as you, going back to what you were just saying, as long as you're feeling safe and there's no danger, it's a matter of tuning into the direction that you're traveling and maybe appreciating it, maybe having joy about it. There we are. Back to the beginning.
Wonderful.
Can I just say before we do the final piece, sorry for the echo on my side of the conversation, people, if you are listening. We did try very hard to try and get rid of it in the first place, and it's only intermittent, which is not too bad. But hope it didn't interfere with your sort of your enjoyment. Hey, see, I got that in there then. Enjoyment of this particular podcast. And we'll be back very soon talking about another subject, which is probably going to be put forward by me next time. Now, it's a bit of a mystery because obviously before we actually talk about a particular subject during the podcast, one of us will just mention it and do a little tiny teaser on it and then say, okay, hit the record button and see how it goes. And hopefully most of the time it goes all right. But thank you very much for being here today. If you do have something that you want to do, as Robin said earlier on, it's not about us telling you that we're great, that we've got all the answers, because you most certainly haven't. These are just our ideas and our opinions. And if you do want to get involved in a more, what's the word I'm thinking of, Robin? Not private, in a private way. If there's something that you want to talk to myself or Robin about, not in the public forum, then there will be our emails at the end of this particular presentation. You can contact us there. Ask us what you like. Give us your opinions. Give us your thoughts.
Yes, we would love to hear them.
Thank you very much for being here today, and see you next time. From myself, Nigel, and
me, Robin. See you next time.
Bye.